Sato, a high school student, is supposedly a below-average-looking Japanese boy, but he honestly looks just like every other manga character. Anyways, Sato apparently has no particular talent either. He's just an ordinary boy, yet the prettiest girl in school, Saikawa, confessed to him first, and they began dating a month ago. Today, they held hands with each other for the first time. Saikawa worries that their relationship might be moving too slowly. Out of nervousness, Sato blurts out that they have the rest of their lives together, so there's no need to rush anything. His declaration of being together forever makes Saikawa blush and look away in embarrassment. In his head, Sato worries if what he just said was maybe too cringe. He quickly tries to clarify what he meant, but Saikawa reassures him by expressing her deep affection for him, which leaves Sato feeling incredibly fortunate. At even the mundane task of walking her to the train station, Sato thinks to himself that he's never felt happier in his life. Later, when Sato returns home, he receives a call from his dad at the airport. Their relationship appears to be strained, and Sato answers the phone with an annoyed tone. At his father's playful demeanor, Sato threatens to hang up. However, the dad claims to have something important to tell his son. At first, the dad gets kind of embarrassed to tell him about it, but he eventually confesses that he's getting remarried. Having never even heard his dad mention having a girlfriend, Sato gets shocked and asks who he's marrying. The dad explains that he met her at work a few months ago. He then informs Sato that he now has a stepsister named Shigure, who will be moving in with him starting today. The dad explains that he and his stepmother won't be with them for an entire year, as the two will be dispatched overseas to America for work. At the sudden news of his life turning upside down, Sato freaks out at his dad. However, the dad remains chill and informs his son that his flight is departing soon, so he has to leave. He wishes Sato good luck and hangs up on him. After a brief moment of despair, Sato decides to at least tidy up his house before his new stepsister arrives. However, before he's even able to get started, there is already a knock at the door. Sato takes a look outside and finds Saikawa standing outside his door. He wonders why she's here without any notice, and how she even found out where he lives. When Sato finally opens the door, he realizes something is off. The girl closely resembles Saikawa, but there is a subtle difference in their appearance. Plus, she's wearing a different school uniform. Carefully, he inquires if she's his new sister, Shigure, and she confirms it by addressing him as Oni-chan. Sato realizes his newfound predicament of having to live with his new stepsister, who coincidentally looks identical to his girlfriend. Shigure asks if he knew she was coming today. Sato answers truthfully that he only heard the news a minute ago. Shigure then asks what his name is. When she says his name out loud, Sato realizes she even sounds like his girlfriend. Feeling awkward about the resemblance, he asks her not to call him by his name, and Shigure agrees to address him simply as Oni-chan. As Shigure comes in, Sato realizes that he hasn't cleared away his educational magazine. She discovers the magazine before he's able to hide it. She gives him a sly smile and remarks that she understands that he has his needs. Sato thanks her for her charitable outlook. She then offers to cook dinner for him while he tidies up the home, claiming to be a decent cook. As Sato cleans up his place, he can't help but be amazed at just how closely Shigure resembles Saikawa. He feels guilty for associating the two together, and having butterflies in his stomach while looking at Shigure. His guilt trip is interrupted when Shigure asks about his dad. Sato vents his frustration, referring to his dad as a jerk, and claims that Shigure's mother is probably having a hard time with him already. Unexpectedly, Shigure's facial expression immediately changes as she defends her mother. She then requests that Sato refrain from addressing her with an honorific san at the end of her name, as they are now siblings. Sato refuses her request, claiming that the two aren't blood-related. She responds by telling him to stop his victim mentality, as if he's the only one facing adjustments in their new family dynamic. Sato falls silent at first, but then he starts power-slapping his own face to punish his insensitivity. Fearing that he suddenly got possessed by demons, Shigure asks if he's all right. Sato claims he is, and apologizes for his behavior earlier. He finally addresses Shigure by her name. Internally, Sato thinks to himself that he's going to have to get used to differentiating Shigure from his girlfriend Saikawa. Despite their striking resemblance, Sato quickly realizes that Shigure has a completely different personality from Saikawa. Shigure teases and flirts with Sato, expressing her desire to be spoiled by him. Their differences make Sato consider the possibility of truly becoming her brother, unaware at that moment of how their relationship will unfold in the future. After dinner, just as they finish cleaning up the house, Shigure rushes out of the bathroom to report a problem. She informs him that there isn't a place for her to change her clothes. Sato comes up with a makeshift solution, suggesting they use spare bed sheets as a curtain. He asks if it's okay for her, but Shigure playfully turns the question around, asking if he's okay with it instead, grinning mischievously. He asks why she's smiling, but she quickly brushes it off. Soon, as Shigure gets ready for her bath, Sato realizes the short-sightedness of his curtain idea. He panics at the sight of her bare shin bone and quickly looks around for a place to hide before more clothes appear on the floor and threaten the sacred integrity of this channel. But it's too late, as Victoria's Secret makes an appearance below the makeshift curtains. Sato slams his head on the table, determined not to look. Suddenly, Shigure pops her head out to ask him to fetch her shampoo from her suitcase. While blushing, Sato asks if it's all right for him to look through her bag, and she gives him permission. He retrieves the shampoo, and she thanks him with yet another sly smile, leaving him slightly suspicious of her intentions. However, Sato decides not to jump to conclusions and instead tries to distract himself by studying, hoping to take his mind off of her. After a while, Shigure emerges from the bathroom with a damp towel wrapped around her body. Sato gets flustered by her appearance and quickly looks away. Meanwhile, Shigure appears puzzled by his reaction. Still embarrassed, Sato pleads with her to cover up. She giggles like MJ before revealing that she's wearing her clothes underneath. She laughs at Sato's reaction and his gullibility. Sato, accuses Shigure of intentionally teasing him just now. She admits to having some fun at his expense and scoffs at Sato for appearing excited. Still feeling annoyed, Sato warns Shigure to be careful, as he can't make any promises about her safety. Shigure scoffs at his remark, saying she's not worried in the slightest. When Sato questions the source of her confidence, Shigure reveals that she has 3 legs. She throws a magazine above her head and rips it in half by kicking it. Shigure reassures him that she can kick his ass at any time, if the need arises. At Sato's angered response to teasing him, she feigns ignorance and tells him not to be so upset. Internally, Sato worries about the day Shigure finds out that he happens to have a girlfriend who looks exactly like her. While Shigure apologizes for teasing him and asks him not to be angry, she confesses that she's always wanted an older sibling and would love for him to spoil her like an adorable and deserving little sister. The next day at Sato's school, Shigure introduces herself in his classroom as a new transfer student. While the rest of the class warmly welcomes her, Sato appears slightly annoyed as he recalls their conversation earlier that day. Shigure suggested keeping their sibling relationship a secret at school to avoid any distasteful rumors. Sato agreed to do so, but apologized in advance for having to tell a few of his friends, as they were bound to find out eventually. In response, Shigure demanded a kiss on her cheek as an apology, teasing Sato yet again that morning. During lunch, Sato meets up with his friends Tomo and Takeda. He opens up about his situation of living with a new stepsister who looks exactly like his girlfriend. Tomoe and Takeda playfully joke that he must have been a terrible person in a past life to be punished with such an unusual predicament. Tomoe then asks if he's going to tell the truth to his girlfriend Saikawa. He says that if he was in Sato's situation, he wouldn't tell her just yet. Tomoe even wonders if the identical appearance between Saikawa and Shigure is more than just a coincidence, hinting at a mysterious connection between the two. Just as Tomoe is about to elaborate on his theory, Shigure suddenly appears, greeting them with a kawaii smile that makes Takeda's muscles particularly excited. Then, Shigure surprises them by asking if they happen to know a girl named Saikawa, revealing her knowledge of Sato's girlfriend. Suddenly, Saikawa herself shows up, and upon seeing Shigure, bursts into tears and embraces her tightly. Afterwards, Shigure proceeds to explain to everyone that she and Saikawa are actually twin sisters who were separated when their parents got divorced. The revelation leaves everyone astonished. When Saikawa regains her composure, she feels embarrassed about her emotional outburst in front of Sato. When Shigure inquires how Saikawa knows Sato, she reveals that Sato is her boyfriend. Later that night, Sato gets lost in his thoughts about the conversation with his friend earlier. He thinks to himself that confessing the truth to Saikawa about him living with her sister Shigure would only complicate matters unnecessarily. Lying on the floor, he wonders when Shigure might return home. Just as he starts to think that she might return home late, Shigure opens the door. Sato remarks that she's come back early, and she cheerfully explains that she came back in time to make him dinner, just as she promised she would do so from now on. Shigure immediately starts cooking, appearing to be in a good mood. Sato, still worried, asks if she and her sister had a chance to catch up. Shigure opens up about their family history, sharing that she and her sister were separated right after preschool. Then, with a sly smile, she reveals that Saikawa had been talking non-stop about Sato. His worry rises, and he asks Shigure if she told Saikawa about them living together. Shigure reassures him that she hasn't, as she also believes it would be best to keep it a secret. Shigure adds that one thing is now clear to her. She understands why he had a strange, troubled look on his face when they first met, which she now realizes wasn't a look of captivation by her cuteness. Shigure admits that while she enjoyed teasing him the day before, she recognizes the need to distance herself from him to avoid hurting her sister's feelings in any way, at least until their parents return. In response, Sato claims he's actually a gigachad, which makes Shigure blush. He confesses that while Saikawa is his one and only precious girlfriend, Shigure is also important to him as his one and only little sister. He promises to love and spoil her as she deserves in order to preserve the manga's only plot. Internally, Sato thinks to himself that he might be digging his own grave, but he decides to do his best to keep them both happy. To his surprise, Shigure suddenly bursts into laughter and grins widely. She teases him about acting as if he's a Mac Daddy, when he's really a bottom G who was shook at the sight of her in a towel. As Sato begins blushing, Shigure hugs him tightly, mentioning that she sees why her sister might like him. As she professes her admiration for his tenacious qualities, she whispers about spicing up this manga by turning it into a harem. Sato gets flustered and backs off from her hug, but she continues her dialogue, claiming that since she and Saikawa are twins, he could easily fall for her too. She claims to be already crazy about him. Then, Shigure asks him what he thinks about the idea of having her as his side chick. At his shocked response, Shigure again claims to have been joking and teases Sato about his blushing. In a playful but slightly intimidating manner, Shigure grabs Sato by his necktie, reminding him not to back off from his promise to spoil her. Sato confidently assures her that he won't go back on his word, and even dares her to push his buttons further. Shigure smiles and suggests that while she'll show restraint in school in front of others, things are going to be different at home. As the days pass, they get along well, and Sato finds himself becoming more comfortable around Shigure. The only thing he still needs to get used to is Shigure's occasional teasing, and sometimes mistaking her for Saikawa. Nonetheless, he believes that he'll adapt to those quirks in due time. The next day, as Sato comes home, he is surprised to find Saikawa greeting him instead of Shigure. Panic sets in as he wonders how she found out where he lives and if she discovered that he's living with her sister. But a few moments later, Shigure fails to hold it in any further and bursts into laughter. Sato collapses onto the floor from relief, while Shigure continues to tease him over his reaction. When he asks why she is wearing her sister's uniform, Shigure claims it was her sister's idea to exchange uniforms for the day. She also admits that she wanted to see Sato's reaction. Playfully, Shigure asks if it feels like he's at home with his girlfriend, since they look alike and she was wearing her clothes. Sato denies feeling that way, asserting that their personalities are vastly different. Unfazed by his denial, Shigure takes her teasing up a notch and playfully advances towards him on her knees. However, he immediately puts on his Batman disguise, scaring off Shigure. He urges her to get changed, claiming it's too warm in their place for her to be wearing such clothes. Internally, Sato thinks that the outfit gives her an even closer resemblance to Saikawa, making it too tempting for him. However, Shigure insists on keeping the uniform for a little longer. Shigure then hands Sato her phone and asks him to take photos for her while she poses. She then asks for a second to get ready and takes her socks off. Sato gets puzzled by what she's doing, so Shigure paints a more vivid picture for him, explaining about a hypothetical steamy scenario where a boy brings his girlfriend home and they eventually have a jujitsu match at home. Sato brushes it off, but internally, he totally gets it, as he wishes to put on a gi and have a jujitsu match himself. While taking her photos, Sato tries to remind himself that Shigure is not Saikawa and to maintain some distance in his thoughts. He starts to feel overwhelmed, worrying that his heart might give out soon from all the excitement. After taking the photos, Shigure offers to give him a reward before getting changed. She gets on top of him and remarks that his heart is racing like crazy. She finds it cute how much denial he is in, as it was patently clear that he's trying to dissociate her from her sister. Sato denies it fervently, claiming that he was simply surprised by her double-leg takedown. Shigure tells him that she understands his excitement is simply over her similar appearance to her sister, but she reveals that there are things she can do for him that Saikawa would never consider. For instance, she claims that she can give him a sneak peek of a pussy willow, a shrub known for its long branches that produce fuzzy gray catkins. Sato freaks out, claiming to possess no interest in studying plant biology. Despite his objections, Shigure doesn't relent and calmly explains to him that botany is actually quite interesting. In response, Sato tells her to quit talking about it, otherwise YouTube might figure out that this conversation isn't really about plants. That doesn't stop Shigure, who ultimately opens up her plant textbook to educate him more. When Sato screams and shuts his eyes in protest, Shigure bursts into laughter, claiming that the furry little flower buds along the branches of willows do not start appearing until the tail end of winter. In layman's terms, it means she's wearing shorts underneath. In an angered response, Sato opens his eyes to confront Shigure. However, his eyes are greeted by her lips, but not the ones on her face. Sato shudders profusely, hoping that this video can still be monetized. However, Shigure bursts into laughter, finding his reaction amusing and teasing him for overreacting to seeing her shorts. To prove what he's seeing, Sato captures a photo and shows it to her. She gets shocked and snatches the phone off his hands to quickly delete the photo. Quietly, she retreats into the bedroom, chiding herself for her regretful decision. The next day, Sato meets up with Saikawa at the library to study for their upcoming exam together. However, they find the library already crowded with students. Saikawa carefully suggests that they study at her place instead, invoking a shocked response from Sato. Later at Saikawa's home, Sato looks around in amazement, having never been inside her bedroom before. He gets nervous over the alluring, sweet scent of her room and tries to remain composure. When Saikawa calls his name, he chokes on his own spit, resulting in a fit of coughing. He contemplates the intention behind her invitation, initially thinking it might be a signal to get closer, but he decides not to make any moves, afraid of misreading her intentions. As they finish their homework, Saikawa offers to refill his glass and leaves the room. Although still unsure about whether she's waiting on him to make a move, he feels happy simply thinking about how adorable she is. When Saikawa returns with his drink, she sits right next to Sato. Suppressing her embarrassment, she says she'd like to be closer to him as his girlfriend, and smiles at him sweetly. He gets taken aback by her honesty and feels genuinely happy that someone like her would like him so much. He places his trembling hand on her face. With a smile, she gently holds his hands. Sato's heart begins to pound as he contemplates his next move. Surely this was a sign from her. As he inches closer, their moment is interrupted by the doorbell ringing. After looking away in embarrassment, Saikawa excuses herself to check the door. As she leaves the room, Sato gets upset at having missed his chance to finally hug her, or maybe he could have even kissed her. Outside, he overhears Saikawa greet her dad, and Sato freaks out. Saikawa's dad notices his shoes and asks if she brought a friend over, to which she replies that her boyfriend came to study together. The dad jokes about potentially interrupting them. With a happy smile, Saikawa claims he sure did. Saikawa's dad decides to greet Sato. Overhearing their conversation, Sato quickly corrects his posture. But before he can think of what to say, the dad arrives at the door. He introduces himself first, to which Sato jumps to his feet in a militaristic manner. As Sato stammers for words, he blurts out that he will make Saikawa the happiest girl in the world, making the situation even more awkward. Saikawa's dad eventually laughs out loud. Then, as he gently puts his hands on Sato's shoulder, he expresses relief that Sato appears to be a respectable and decent young man. But his smile briefly disappears, and as tightens his grip on Sato's shoulder, the dad gives a subtle fatherly reminder for Sato not to be an indecent man. He then quickly reverts back to gentle dad mode and invites Sato to stay for dinner. However, recalling that Shigure must be waiting for him at home, Sato turns down his invitation and excuses himself. As he leaves, Sato lets out a sigh of relief. On his way home, Sato worries that Shigure might be angry with him for coming home late. How will Sato navigate the sticky situation of living with his girlfriend's sister? Will their secret be outed? Will I be able to continue fooling YouTube with my botany references, or will I get caught too? Subscribe so you don't miss the next episode, which might be a while as there's no new episodes. Sorry.